Throughout the remarkable 115-year history of Unocal Corporation, it's always been about people. From the very beginning, Unocal's people have made the difference. Some had a vision and were willing to take a risk. Others saw opportunity where most had given up hope. Generations of hard-working men and women used their skills and talents to provide vital energy resources to communities in North America, Asia, and other parts of the world. These were the people of Unocal, and this is their legacy. Union Oil Company was founded in the small farming community of Santa Paula, California on October 17, 1890. From the very beginning, Union Oil was an innovator, pioneering new markets for petroleum products and developing new technologies. The founders were three businessmen: Lyman Stewart, Wallace Hardison, and Thomas Bard. Stewart aggressively sought new leases to add to the company's growing inventory of exploratory acreage. In 1891, California's oil boom hit high gear, and the new company was at the forefront. Union Oil established the first petroleum chemical laboratory in the western United States to develop new products from California's heavy crude oils. Before long, demand for the company's products had grown so strong that Union Oil constructed a large refinery near San Francisco, a move that made the company the major marketer in California. When Stewart became the sole leader of the company in 1900, he continued developing Union Oil into a fully integrated petroleum company by expanding its refining, marketing, and transportation activities. One of his first moves was to relocate the company headquarters to Los Angeles, a growing metropolis that Stewart considered a city of the future. Stewart surrounded himself with talented people who would eventually become legends in California's petroleum industry. Men like William Orcutt, who headed the company's newly formed geology department; Frank Hill, an inventor who developed the oil well cementing process; and his oldest son, Will Stewart, who knew the company's operations from the ground up. As Union Oil entered its third decade, some feared that California's oil fields were in danger of playing out. Not Lyman Stewart. Spurred by his leadership, the company continued to explore. And in 1910, Union Oil struck pay dirt with the discovery that became the world's greatest gusher, the Lakeview #1 well near Taft, California. When the well was finally brought under control, it had produced nearly 9 million barrels of oil and silenced those predicting the imminent end of the California oil boom. And for America's new mobile society, the huge discovery couldn't have come at a better time. The auto age had arrived, and in 1910, for the first time in the nation's history, gasoline surpassed kerosene as the top petroleum product. Responding to Southern California's growing love affair with the automobile, in 1913, Union Oil opened its first gas station, a small curbside shack located at the corners of 6th and Mateo in Los Angeles. 1 year later, Will Stewart was elected president of Union Oil Company. Shortly afterwards, he began gearing operations to meet the growing energy demands of World War I. That effort was aided by the company's opening of a new 10,000-barrel-a-day refinery in Los Angeles. By 1925, the familiar Union Oil logo could be found on more than 400 gas stations throughout California. That same year, the company issued its first gasoline credit card, a handwritten slip of paper that expired after 2 months. In the 1930s, Press St. Clair took over as president of Union Oil Company. With the country now in the grip of a deep depression, St. Clair reduced drilling activities and eliminated less profitable operations. Despite the belt tightening, Union Oil continued to thrive, developing new products and technologies under the supervision of Bill Stewart Jr., the grandson of founder Lyman Stewart. Bill Stewart was responsible for launching Union 76 gasoline in 1932. The 76 trademark, a marketing concept based on the patriotic spirit of 76, became a familiar symbol to millions of motorists throughout much of the country. In 1938, a new leader took over the helm of Union Oil Company. His name was Reese Taylor, and he would guide the company for 24 years. Helped by a talented management team, Taylor, who came from the steel industry, aggressively strengthened and grew the company. Under Taylor, Union Oil broadened its marketing operations and ventured offshore into the Gulf of Mexico. In 1951, Union Oil opened a new research center in Brea, California, to support its long commitment to the development of new products and technologies. In 1959, the company discovered and developed the first natural gas field in Alaska, a field that would help heat the city of Anchorage, and later provide feedstock to the company's new agricultural chemicals plant on the Kenai Peninsula. The 50s also saw the completion of Union Oil Center in downtown Los Angeles. The new 12-story building, which dominated the downtown skyline when it opened, served as the company's world headquarters for the next 38 years. The 1960s saw development of the company's unicracking process, a revolutionary refining technology that increased the yield of high-grade fuels by nearly 115%. In 1962, longtime CEO Reese Taylor unexpectedly passed away, and Cy Rubel was called out of retirement to lead the company. Rubel ran Union Oil long enough to handpick his successor, Fred L. Hartley. On August 31, 1964, Hartley was elected president of Union Oil. 4 months later, he added the title of Chief Executive Officer, a position he was to hold for the next 24 years. It was Hartley who led the transformation of Union Oil from a relatively small regional oil company into a strong international enterprise. In 1965, Hartley negotiated a merger with the Pure Oil Company, a move that would give the new Union Oil greater competitive strength, broader geographic and product diversification, and increased financial and operating stability. But the Pure merger was only a sign of things to come for Union Oil under the leadership of Hartley. The company accelerated its search for domestic oil and gas in the Gulf of Mexico, offshore California, and southern Alaska, where strikes in 1965 made Union Oil the biggest oil producer in that state. Hartley also committed the company to the development of alternative energies, forming Union Geothermal Division in 1967 and eventually making Union Oil the largest producer of geothermal energy in the world. It was under Hartley's leadership that the company opened the 140,000 barrel per day Chicago refinery. Hartley was also responsible for moving the company into Indonesia, Thailand, the Philippines, and the North Sea. Union signed its first production sharing contract in Indonesia in 1968. During the next 35 years, the company invested more than $5 billion in Indonesian energy exploration, development, and production. Working closely with the people and government of Indonesia, the company produced nearly 600 million barrels of crude oil and 1.6 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. In 1973, Union discovered the Erawan gas field in the Gulf of Thailand, launching a highly successful partnership with the people of that fast-growing country. During the next 30 years, the company produced more than 6 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, providing fuel for about 50% of the country's domestic electricity needs. Hartley was at the helm when Union Oil changed its name to Unocal in 1983. And in 1985, he was instrumental in defeating a group led by T. Boone Pickens in a hostile takeover attempt of the company. After nearly 50 years of service, Hartley retired from Unocal in 1988, and Richard J. Stegemeyer was named President and Chief Executive Officer. Inheriting $6.1 billion of debt from the company's successful defeat of the takeover attempt, and faced with falling oil prices, Stegemeyer began streamlining operations, following a trend that was started in 1986. With his vision focused on future growth, Stegemeyer also concentrated on expanding the company's energy resource base, both domestically and overseas. Under Stegemeyer, Unocal assembled the largest inventory of exploratory lands in the company's history. Most of the acreage was overseas, where the company had active exploration projects underway in 13 foreign countries. In 1990, for the first time in the company's history, Unocal had more capital budgeted for exploration overseas than in the U.S. Stegemeyer was also responsible for introducing several innovative programs aimed at protecting the environment. He introduced the SCRAP program in Los Angeles in the early 90s. SCRAP, which stood for South Coast Recycled Auto Program, was designed to remove older, more polluting vehicles from the road. The SCRAP program became a model for similar efforts in other parts of the country. In 1991, Unocal joined a group of 6 Western companies that agreed to evaluate the Azeri field, offshore Azerbaijan in the Caspian Sea. And during the same year, Stegemeyer led the company in the acquisition of Shell refinery facilities in Carson, California. This enabled Unocal to increase its output of high-value transportation fuels, while lowering raw material costs. Still hindered by the debt incurred from the mid-'80s takeover attempt, Stegemeyer focused on improving operational efficiency and performance throughout the organization. He launched a 5-year program to reduce total debt by $1.5 billion, sell non-strategic assets, and improve cash flow. But even as it shed non-core operations, Unocal continued to pursue key growth projects. In 1993, the company became an investor in the Yadana natural gas field in Myanmar. And in 1994, Unocal signed a production sharing agreement to develop 3 Caspian Sea oil fields offshore Azerbaijan. Following Stegemeyer's retirement in 1995, Roger Beach became Unocal's chairman and chief executive officer. Under Beach, Unocal continued to focus on operational efficiency in North America, while expanding activities overseas. The company moved forward with a natural gas contract and pipeline agreement for the Yadana project in Myanmar and began major refinery modifications in California to manufacture reformulated gasoline. But in 1997, Beach led Unocal through a major strategic shift as the company exited the downstream side of the business. The company's refining and marketing operations were sold to Tosco Corporation. Under this new direction, Unocal became one of the industry's leading independent exploration and production companies. That same year, Unocal discovered Indonesia's first deepwater oil and gas field offshore East Kalimantan. It was the first of several deepwater discoveries that Unocal would go on to make in the years to come. Coupled with this success, production soon began from the first of 3 Caspian Sea oil fields being developed by the Azerbaijan International Operating Company. Unocal was the second largest stakeholder in the AIOC. For the remainder of the 90s and into the year 2000, Unocal continued to strengthen its global exploration portfolio, especially in the deep water areas of Indonesia and the Gulf of Mexico. By the turn of the century, Unocal held one of the industry's best natural gas positions in South Asia, with more than 13 trillion cubic feet of resource potential in Indonesia, Thailand, Bangladesh, and Vietnam. In 2001, Roger Beach retired from Unocal and Chuck Williamson was named CEO. Tim Ling, who joined the company in 1997, was named Chief Operating Officer. Under Williamson and Ling's leadership, Unocal continued to focus on increasing the company's exploration successes. Unocal soon announced 2 major deepwater discoveries: Rangas in Indonesia, and Trident in the Gulf of Mexico. Drilled in water depths over 10,000 feet, the Trident discovery established a new deepwater record in the U.S. Gulf. In August of 2001, Unocal reached another milestone as the company's first crude oil from the Gulf of Thailand was produced from the Plamuk operating area. Initial production was 8,000 barrels per day, reaching 40,000 barrels less than 4 years later. Under Williamson, Unocal also expanded its long-standing commitment to improve the lives of people in local communities where the company has operations. In addition to directly helping communities with jobs, infrastructure improvements, healthcare, and education projects, Unocal initiated long-term alliances with several leading humanitarian organizations. By the year 2003 and beyond, Unocal had become a truly international company. The West Seno field in Indonesia went on stream, making it the first successful deepwater development project in the country. In Bangladesh, Unocal signed a new gas sales agreement to develop the Molavi Bazar field. In the Caspian region, work continued to move forward on a pipeline project that would eventually move nearly 1 million barrels of oil per day to a new oil export terminal on the Mediterranean Sea. Unocal also made 2 major deepwater discoveries in the Gulf of Mexico. One was St. Malo, which opened a new play in the Central Gulf's lower Tertiary horizon. The other discovery was Puma, located west of the company's successful Mad Dog field. And offshore Indonesia, another significant deepwater oil and gas field was discovered with the completion of the Gehem prospect. Along with these successes also came tragedy. In 2004, the company was shocked and saddened by the sudden death of its 46-year-old president and chief operating officer, Tim Ling. Ling had played an important role in helping to restructure Unocal's global businesses and rebuild its exploration portfolio, while strengthening the company's management team. During the first quarter of 2005, Unocal experienced record earnings and cash flow, benefiting from improved efficiency, strengthened operations, and robust commodity prices. About this time, news of a possible merger began to appear in the press. The potential suitors included Chevron and CNOOC of China. As the board of directors weighed the offers, they realized that a larger company's scale and financial resources might be better suited to leverage Unocal's world-class oil and gas prospects and provide greater opportunity for the company's stockholders. In April, Williamson signed a merger agreement with Chevron, and on Wednesday, August 10, 2005, he made the merger official as he read the vote count at a special meeting of stockholders.
And the Corporate Secretary will now read the preliminary report of the Inspector as to Item 1, the approval and adoption of the Chevron merger agreement.
The Inspector of Election has reported that Item 1 received the affirmative vote of 77.21% of the company's issued and outstanding shares of common stock as of the record date.
So based on the report of the Inspector of Election, I declare that Item 1 has been approved. For more than a century, there have been generations of very talented Unocal employees who have created, I think, a remarkable record of innovation and productivity. They've been leaders in industry, they've been leaders in the communities and places where we work, both here in the United States and in many countries abroad. We have been one of the longest-lived companies in this energy industry. And over the years, I think we've done our fair share to improve the quality of life in the places where we do work and live.
For nearly 115 years, Unocal was a highly respected and productive presence in the global energy industry. From Thailand to the Gulf of Mexico, Unocal was known as a company that lived by its vision and values. To be the world's leading energy resource and project development company, not the biggest, but the best, with an employee team strongly committed to improving lives wherever they worked. It is these employees, the many thousands of hardworking men and women in Asia, Europe, Africa, and the Americas, who have created the Unocal legacy, a legacy that will live on for generations to come.